All right, it is time for Friday Reads. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. In my Friday Reads, I share how my reading has been going, including what I finished, what I've started, and anything I'm carrying over week to week. This week is going to be a little bit differently because I'm going to do like a mini wrap-up for how Grinchathon went. I'm mostly just going to share how my spread ended up turning out and how the last couple of days of Grinchathon went, because I shared a lot on Instagram and Twitter and also my last Friday Reads, but the readathon continued for a few more days, and then now that we're in August, it's Berna's Bookish Bingo time. I will leave a link to her announcement video up above. Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures is doing a bingo card in celebration of her Booktube anniversary, and I have decided to participate for that, and so I have started reading some of the books that I chose for that, or continued ones that I had already started and chose for different prompts for that. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is I'll share sort of how Grinchathon went, and then I'll share how my reading has been going this week. And yeah, because I already did do my August TBR, which shares my choices for all of the prompts for Berna's Bookish Bingo. But before we get there, I'm going to get to Grinchathon and how things went. I'm actually really happy with how the readathon went, and so many of the reads that I did. I really feel like I did. I didn't do a total for the pages because I forgot to write it in the final day, which we'll get to in a sec. But here is my Grinchathon spread. So each of the drawings represents one of the different prompts, and as I finished the prompt, I filled in the different drawings. So you can tell right away that there's one that went astray. I didn't finish the last prompt, which was Hearts. I had hoped to read Romeo and or Juliet, which is a choose your own adventure title. I couldn't quite make it. I felt like I needed like a good sort of 1 to 2 hours of dedicated time just for that. And I just couldn't work up to it. And I feel really crummy about that because I really wanted to read it, and I still want to read it. But I just feel like I haven't been able to relax into focusing on one thing. I'm so used to going from book to book to book to book to book. Anyway, I did finish the other 7 prompts. We have Cool, Rainbow, Easy, Free Space, Band or BA, Finish, and Pictures. And I think my tally here of the numbers. I forgot to finish the last one I didn't read anything on the last 2 days. And I only did one of the Instagram prompts, so not so great on that. But I am thrilled with some of the finishes, especially Beastly Bones here in the middle. I also really loved I Am a Wild Seed and the Banned Book Club. Honestly, I really enjoyed all of the things that I read for it. So overall, the readathon was great, and I had a great time, and I spent a lot of time on Twitter just checking in with other people and how their reading was going, and Izzy did tons of sprints, so it was a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to doing a spread for Berna's Bookish Bingo. I'll probably wait till the weekend proper to do that, so I have some good relaxed time to do the bingo card and see what I come up with in terms of doing a spread for that. I have an idea. I don't know if it's going to work. I might actually have to do it, sketch it out on other paper to see if it'll work, and because I want to maintain the bingo card aesthetic, but also be able to fit in the titles. So we'll see how things go. So I'm really happy with Grinchathon. I got tons of reading done, and almost all of the prompts, but nothing in the last 2 days, which is unusual for me. So in terms of my reading this week, when I sat down to do my reading plan on Sunday, I was finding myself feeling really stressed, and I do feel like consistently over time, I feel like I want to spend a little less time planning my reading. Like, I love making lists and working on lists and organizing lists and checking lists and all this kind of stuff. But lists usually, you find a list you like, you capture it or document it in whatever way you want to, and then that's it. All you have to do is check in on it or add stuff or check did you read anything or use it for your TBR. So that's like a sort of like, I don't mind doing lists because they have a completion, and eventually you might read all the books on the list. I have not done that for, I don't think, any list, but eventually you might get there. There is a finish line. But I find like with some planning, like especially because I do weekly reading planning, I feel like it takes so much time, and I don't want to take something that I do so frequently to take so much time. So this week I took a bit of a different approach. I looked at the sort of like how I worked the TBR jars that I did for my TBR jar picks that from the beginning of the year, and I kind of used that idea or just that structure as a base of what to do that. So for that, what I did was I had 4 TBR jars, one for nonfiction, one for speculative fiction, one for romance, and one for everything else. So what I did for my weekly reading is I just, I actually wrote in my, journal or my notebook, I wrote those categories, and then I wrote all of the books that I was currently reading or interested in that fit all of those genres, and I just picked one to focus on this week. And so that's going to be my primary. So my first reading for the day will be to get X amount of pages for that title or whatever. And then if I finish all that, then I can read whatever I want. But it's kind of like just read from here first, kind of idea. And I even did it on my little weekly reading plan. So I put literary, speculative, romance, nonfiction. And then I also included a visual work and a kid's book because those are things that I read consistently as well, but I don't tend to carry them over week to week. So my thought process in creating TBRs and working on my reading is different if I can read something within a week, which kids' books and visual works is the case. Anything that's taking longer than a week needs a little more help, a little more support, a little more time. And so, so that's what I did. So the 4 that I picked this week, my literary pick, which is probably not a huge surprise, or my everything else pick, was Les Miserables, because, it will be till the end of time, or at least the end of the year. Hopefully Halloween, I'm hoping to have this finished. This format doesn't work perfectly because it doesn't leave room for picking something else, but I think this is just like, I picked 4, like 1 per as my priority read, and then after I finish reading that, I can read any other literary work that I want. Anyway, I'm trying it for this week and seeing how it feels. The whole idea is to feel less pressure. If it ends up being more pressure, it doesn't work. So far it's working. So my literary pick was easy, Les Miserables. My nonfiction pick was easy too, because I finished watching Seven Samurai, so now I can actually read the Seven Samurai book that I got, which is everything I know about filmmaking I learned watching Seven Samurai by Richard D. Pepperman. This actually is quite a fast read. The beginning was not, because there's like a forward, an intro, and a prologue or whatever. There's a lot. But then once we get into the actual book proper, it's very fast, because there's often 2 or 3 photos or stills and then, writing in the middle. So once I got to this part of the book, it's a very, very fast read. Oh yeah, that was a great moment. So it's really interesting. I've only read from this part of the book for a little bit, so I'm gonna save some of my thoughts to when I have read more of it. It is an interesting perspective. It is quite analytical, and it is very much in sort of film study speak and film terms, ECU for extreme close-up, but it does sort of say what the acronyms are, at least the first time. So we'll see if they continue to always use acronyms. I think the further you get into any particular type of work or type of focus, you get more and more acronyms. And like with film stuff, I've taken film classes and I've watched film for a long time, but I don't know how analytical I am from the filmmaking perspective. So I'm going to be interesting to see my reaction to the book, and also interesting to see if that's going to be the consistent focus, because for me, sometimes what I'm more interested in is how we feel seeing these things, the impact of those choices make on the viewing experience. And I don't always want to know the magic behind the curtain in terms of how it was done. Sometimes I'm interested, sometimes I'm not. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes as I continue to read the book. So that was that. And then my speculative fiction pick, this is one for Burnda's Bookish Bingo, and that is The Last Guardian by Jeff Grubb. This is the 3rd in the Warcraft series. I'm actually quite enjoying this. It is... So it's based in the world of World of Warcraft, and this particular title follows a youngish magician or wizard type character who comes to apprentice or mentor or work for an older magician wizard type character. And so far I'm quite enjoying it. I'm curious to see where the story is going to go. This is the third in a series, and it will complete a series, and it reads pretty fast, so I'm enjoying it. I've been playing a lot of WoW recently, so it's been fun to sort of like be in that world in sort of like two different ways. So that's been a lot of fun. In terms of romance, I decided to pick up Beautiful Creatures by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stahl. This is my reread pick for Bernard's Bookish Bingo, and I read this back in the day. Like, I think actually I read it when it was released, to be honest. I remember seeing it in the bookstore. Yeah, probably December 2009. I'm not super connecting to this one as much as I did the first time. It's a YA paranormal romance. It is from a male perspective, and it's someone who lives in a small town in the American South, and someone new comes to town, and he has been having dreams, and and things have been a bit strange, and so but the thing, and I like all of that, and I like magic, and I remember some of the magic-y things in this one, and I remember really liking them, and I really liked the movie. But the things that I don't like about it is the sort of like small-mindedness of the area, his friend group, like everyone, like there's a new girl. Basically, it's like a new girl comes to town, and she lives somewhere, where there's a recluse, and, everyone is very judgy of her right away, what she does, what she wears, how she approaches, and they judge her, and all of the guys, like, are all they're interested in is she attractive, and it's just like, and it's all of that sort of like fitting in, like the need to fit in, or being judged by the cool kids. I'm like, I just, I had no interest in that in high school, and I don't have interest in that as an adult, and so there is a fair amount of dynamics around that, at least so far. So, but I haven't read a ton of it. I am going to stick with it, but it's so long that I'm a little concerned about if I stick with it, does that tell me I'm going to commit to finishing the series? The reason I'm wanting to read this is the second book is one of the oldest books on my Goodreads TBR. So, am I committing to finishing the series in the relatively near future? I'm not sure. I feel like the more I get into it, the more I'm committing to that, and I'm not sure how comfortable I am with that. On the other hand, as far as I remember, I think it's only a trilogy. I think there might be one or two in-betweeners. But there are things I really liked about it, and I liked how it was told. It's just sort of the teen stuff I'm not a huge fan of. It's too early to say whether or not it'll become less, like, prevalent. And, often those kinds of situations set up the scenario for saying it's not okay to hive mind and just go with the crowd, and that kind of work to be in the in-group and or else kind of situation. I don't remember. The new girl definitely is not someone who is well received, and I also think that that's really pretty crummy. So anyway, as I said, I'm like 50 pages into a 500-page book, so it's too early to say, but so there is also some comfort in rereading, because I have read it before, and that makes me feel like if there's things that are a bit more of a repetition or a little less interesting, then I can just move at a faster clip. So I might stick with it even just for that. So did I get everything? Where are my categories? Where is my little cheat sheet? Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. So that was all nonfiction, literary, speculative, and romance. And then in terms of kids' book, I'm reading the Kitty books, Kitty and the Great Lantern Race. I actually haven't finished this. It's taking me a while, which is very strange. And then I've also started The Nest, which is a Star Wars book, second in the series, Adventures in Wild Space. These are kids Star Wars books. They're very fast reads. So that's been nice to have something a bit faster. And in terms of visual works, I actually did finish something. I read Amulet, book 7. And this is a kids graphic novel series that is being adapted to TV. This is the 7th in a 9-book series, and the ninth book hasn't been released yet. It's a kids speculative fiction, and like I'm not quite sure, to be honest. Like I felt like I was very centered in the story and how the world works, and then with this one I'm kind of like, I am not sure I understand anything. This one's a bit colder, I would think. Sometimes there are characters that I really like in this one. There's like some animal characters that I really like, and there's some robots in this one too. But the main 2 characters, I don't find them as accessible, which is interesting and a little surprising, and I don't know exactly where it's going. But there's interesting speculative fiction stuff. There's magic amulets, that are like rocks, and I don't even, to be honest, I would have a hard time explaining the world, which makes me feel like a little weirded out because it's a kid series. But it's also one of those things that sometimes you like infer something or assume something, and then like how something works or how the magic works or how the history works or how the world works, and then like as it goes on it's like, actually I don't think that that's really how it works, or and there's always going to be, especially in longer series, there's always going to be intrigue and mystery and changes and dynamics and stuff like that. So I think sometimes those have sort of thrown me for a bit of a loop, which sometimes I feel like, shouldn't I have seen that coming? Maybe not. But the art is beautiful, and I love the colors in the story, and I really do like some of the secondary characters, like especially the animals and the robots. And it's cool to see animals and robots, which makes it sort of like, is it fantasy? Is it science fiction? Is it speculative fiction? Is it urban fantasy? Is it a little bit of everything? I don't even know. Anyway, but I have just one more title. The 8th title is the most recent release, and then the 9th one hasn't come out yet, but it will be the finale. So it's a series that I started earlier this year, and I've been trying to be a bit more pick and stick with series this year, which is probably why I'm struggling with Beautiful Creatures, because I feel like if I keep going, that feels like I'm committing to it. Of course I don't have to, but it's like I'm rereading it so I can continue the series. If I reread it now and then I don't continue the series, does that mean I have to reread it again or never get to the series? And the truth is, we don't know the answer to that questions, even if I had planned out exactly what I was going to read for the entire year. Like, stuff happens. I feel it's better to be a bit more flexible, but this year I have tried to, if I have enjoyed a series, I've tried to stick with it, because as time goes on, I have come to more and more situations where it has been so long since I've read something that I need to go back. So I'm taking a very strange approach, which is, if I'm currently reading something and enjoying it in terms of series, I just stick with it. Even if it's not the most favorite, I just stick with it, because if I let it go, then I'll have to reread, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just sticking with it. And then I'm also picking a couple series from way back when and working just consistently on those as well. Even the Warcraft books, like I actually read the first 2 books in that series. No, I read the first book in that series, like, I don't know. It might have been one of my wrapped books from doing the TBR and wrappings. And this year I reread it. I read the second one, and now I'm on the third one, and that'll complete the series. So I'm sort of working the Kindle from both ends, which is a horrible analogy because that's not good. But I just feel like, if I work that way, I read something new and I'm enjoying it, I stick with it. That actually makes complete sense. There's not even anything really to counter that, like, with the exception of sometimes when I keep reading it and I only like something a little, it's usually more like a graphic novel series or a manga series, because they're faster reads, and I feel like sometimes there's just some volumes or issues that are a little less focusing on what I'm interested in, so I just keep going. And then I've also picked, as I said, some earlier series, Beautiful Creatures and the Sookie Stackhouse. I think there's one more. One of my that are sort of from like even pre-Goodreads, and I've been working on those. And I think, eventually I should meet somewhere in the middle, but I think because now that I've done a couple of rereads of older series, I feel like, if I like something now, I should just stick with it and don't and not have to go through the rereading situation later. And I can do rereads, and that's fine, but I only want to do so many at a time. So it doesn't sound that, maybe it doesn't sound that interesting. It doesn't have to be interesting, but it's sort of the inadvertent approach that I've taken this year. And I think it's actually pretty successful because I feel like I've made like slow but steady progress on a fair amount of stuff, and that feels good. And that does feel good. And, you know, if I find that next year I want to do something different, I can. But I think for this year, that sort of working most recent read and earliest read has been good. So let me know your approach to, do you reread something if it's been a long time, or do you just jump into the next book? I think there's certain series I wouldn't have any problem doing that, but I feel like with some, like now that it's like 10 years or 10 plus years, I'm like, I mean, I'm not gonna remember. I have a very vague I remember one character in this, and I remember the end of the movie. That's about it. Like, that's really about it. So, but it has been a bit of a comfort read in a strange sense, even though there's a lot of stuff about the sort of more, there is some sort of the social stuff I'm not interested in at all. But that's okay. I just sort of skim over it. I'm not skimming it, but I just feel like, oh, I'm not that invested in this part of the story. I'm going to wait till there's more magic-y stuff. And that's fine. It's fine. I just let it go. And yeah, it's been okay. So we'll see how things go. It has been a lot, mostly starts or getting back to things this week, which is pretty normal for the beginning of the month. I think I would like to get in a pretty good rotation of rotating out starts and finishes. It didn't really work this time. This week was mostly starts or returns. So, but maybe eventually I'll get on a good rotation of sort of hopefully like finishing one, like a novel type thing, or even nonfiction. This is pretty hefty, the Seven Samurai. So like every week finish something that's sort of more significant and weightier in terms of page count, and then starting something new to fill in that one of those 4 categories. Because the kids stuff and the visual stuff is just all the time, which is great. I love that. I absolutely really do love that. So anyway, that's what I have been reading this week and my new approach to my TBR. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see if it works. I'm a little concerned that if I don't finish any of those 4 titles, I'll be like, well, I'm just reading the same thing. But what's my expectation? To finish something every week? I guess actually that is. I don't know if I can make that happen. Is that unrealistic? To finish like a novel length thing every week? I don't know. Maybe I can get the timing right. I would love to. That would require more planning. That goes against what I'm trying to do. I get stuck in this loop all of the time. So anyway, that is how my reading and my reading planning has been going. Let me know, are you participating in Berna's Bookish Bingo? Let me know, do you do a weekly TBR, or do you just like read until you're finished something and then pick up something else or something completely different? I would love to hear it. I love how people I love when people share what their reading planning is like. I find it really interesting and helpful and always leads to some great discussion. So feel free to share that in the comments below, and I will be back soon in another video. Have a great weekend.